that Joe.
Correct.
Are we doing those warrant articles tonight or no? They're not on the agenda, so.
We should-
Here they are under unfinished business.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to call this meeting to order. Please hold your comments until I open the agenda items for public comment. When addressing the board, state your full name, both in person and on Zoom. It is suggested that you enter your full name as your ID on Zoom as well. Minutes, I will take a motion to approve the minutes of February 24, 2025.
So move.
Second,
All in favor?
Abstain.
And- Oh, abstain. Appointments, recognitions, and resignations. Request appointment of Jordan Lapka as a per diem firefighter EMT to the town of Mount Desert Fire Department, effective March 4th, 2025, at a starting pay of $25.97 an hour.
move approval.
Second.
All in favor? Okay, request appointment of Seth Libby, effective March 10, 2025, at a starting pay of $27.74 an hour.
Move appointment.
Did you get my email this morning?
Yes,
Yeah, you did?
Oh, I didn't.
you're a candidate, the guy.
Yeah, the actual starting rate is not 27.74, it should be 32.45.
Okay, well,
And that's for the deputy code enforcement person?
And health officer, yep.
all right, so.
And what, health officer, is that what you said?
Health officer.
Health.
Okay, so we need to rescind that motion, right?
Or amend it.
Amend it. You would like to amend it?
I request appointment of Seth Libby effective March 10th, 2025 at a starting pay of what? $32.45, $32.45 per hour. Second.
All in favor? Thank you. Consent agenda, planning board minutes of September 11, 25, November 13, December 11, January 8, 22nd, and February 12.
Move acceptance of the consent agenda as presented. Second.
All in favor? Any select board reports? Nope. Unfinished business, nonprofit funding request recommendations.
Do we need to go through these one at a time or how do we normally,
If you guys have had a chance to look at them, if there's none that you want to pull out, I would vote to slate. But if there's some that you want to take a look at and then we would probably be able to do it.
well, there was really only two that I would even comment on, but one being John, unfortunately, the Otter Creek, and the reason being that no fundraising efforts have taken place in the last 12 months and that just concerned me. Perhaps that could be passed. I don't disagree with the program. That was the only thing that stood out at that. And the other one that I know is gonna make me Mr. Popularity again is the nursery school. $20,000, we have eight students, and not all of them are residents. I understand the historical perspective and the value of having that, but the schools offering a pre-K and us being supportive of that, I'm not sure how we want to continue to look at that as a, $20,000 is a lot of money. And like I said, they have 8 students enrolled this year. And that was, just stood out to me.
Yeah, I had some of the same concerns about that number we're not here to dictate their business model, but I guess in my mind, what it came down to is, do we want to support a nursery school? Because that's what we're going to end up doing.
Right. And I don't see that as a feasible thing to continue with the population declining and the number of 0 to 3-year-olds or whatever they're gonna accept being,
Well, I think one of the issues too was once pre-K started, they had to do a whole bunch
Yeah,
of paperwork
yeah.
to accept these kids that aren't potty trained, and it's taken them a long time. I agree with you, that is a lot for 8 kids. But
I just wonder how feasible it is that it stays continuing on. I don't know. That's all. Those were the only 2 that stood out to me as concerning.
Can I say something, John?
Yes, go ahead.
I agree with Jeff's comments. Last year, when the nursery school came to us with a $20,000 figure, I thought it was an outlier. It was quite a bit more than we typically given them, but they had some extraordinary expenses. And I believe I can't remember how we handled it, but I think we went along with it. But this year, it's high again, and I don't like to see that becoming a regular thing, particularly as Jeff said, since the enrollment from our town is so far down.
Yes, go ahead.
Number of current students enrolled there, and doesn't that enrollment number go up and down seasonally as people are coming into the village to work at summer jobs? Their little people are gonna go to the nursery school. And I just think that we need to, if we're going to try to have housing on neighborhood roads with young families, we need to attract young families, and a daycare center is definitely an attraction. And the fact that they are now licensed to handle children that are not toilet trained is a big change. And nothing happens immediately. So to work with them as they move forward in this new fashion just seems like if we want to have our continuing town to be continuing robust, we've got to just work with people.
That's kind of, yeah, exactly. I have to agree with that. That's where I was coming from.
Pretty much what I was going to
Yeah.
speak to, that fluctuating population and infrastructure changes and occurrences that they have to make for life safety codes and whatever, window repairs, roof repairs, ongoing expenses. We're buying a nursery school for $20,000 a year. That's, to me, cheap money. If they went away, what are we gonna do with all those little kids? It's gonna fall to us, and it's gonna cost us a lot more than 20 grand. That's just one point that I would make. Maybe that's an erroneous assumption on my part. But that's how I see it. So are we done discussing the nursing, children's nursery school?
Yes,
Okay,
Yeah.
there's only one that I would like to speak to, and
yeah,
it's gonna make me real popular. It happens to be the Island Housing Trust, and I brought this up last year. I brought it up at our League of Towns fall meeting, and I'll bring it up here. I think that the Island Housing Trust does not belong in the third-party request category, for one thing. And the second thing is, I think I mentioned I wanted to see an allocation of $50,000 to the Island Housing Trust and challenge the other 3 towns on this island to do exactly the same thing. And what it goes to is the heart of affordable housing, not only in our town, but on this entire island. And I said that if we don't put our best foot forward to create affordable housing, sooner than later, this island is going to be occupied by tourists and old people. Because young people aren't going to be able to afford to live here, travel here, and work here. So I just throw that out there for discussion by this board to make that consideration now. And if we decide not to make that consideration, well, that doesn't mean I'm going to stop plugging away. I'm sure Derwin will hear it again at our next League of Towns meeting, but along with that, I think there are a number of different things that we can do with the Island Housing Trust as a community to bring other stakeholders into the game in order to create affordable housing and make it easier for younger people to get through some of the hurdles in the banking industry that they have to jump through and so forth. So I throw that out there with the thought in mind that yes, it's a lot of money. But I firmly believe it's absolutely necessary for us to go down that road sooner than later, or we're not gonna have any affordable houses on this island. Throw it out there for
Yeah.
discussion.
No, I agree. I mean, I was for buying land. Right,
Well,
you know, it's same idea. Anybody else, Wendy? Any input?
I just feel like at some point we've got to come up with a number that we're gonna award annually. So that we don't go from 158 to 177 to next year, 250 to, I would like to see us have this much money in the budget. And maybe we have to cut one or add more to another, but I just feel like if we keep this number growing annually, that it's just gonna get out of hand. And I just hope that the nonprofits that use other towns in this community and on this island, like the Nursing Association, are going to every town and asking for $35,000. Because I know that the Nursing Association used to do much more for our community, our little community, and now they're big and they have accepted Medicare and insurances, and I think that's all well and good, and I'm glad they've got new people, but I just hope other communities are contributing to those organizations. That's all I, excuse me, just gotta grab a paper.
Any of these apply as an MOU?
No,
No.
not this year.
Okay.
Maybe next year, we can, or you should encourage them to apply as MOUs.
Yes,
On the application, it says that the agency that receives the award must use that award within a year, is that correct?
actually, I haven't seen that.
I wonder about that.
Claire, do you think that's right?
I'm sorry, what?
On the application, does it say that the agency must use that award within the year?
I don't think so.
I
Oh,
don't,
I thought it
I've never
did.
seen that.
I don't remember it saying that.
Never mind.
So I guess I would put forth a motion in reviewing this document that the entity identified as the Island Housing Trust have its 2025 request raised from $10,000 to $50,000.
Can we even do that? I mean, they fill out an application for a request and we don't vote on the individual ones anyway. We vote on the total. So we can.
Doesn't that have to be done at town meeting?
It would have to be, yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, John, we can always change the total on town meeting. We've run into this since we've changed to the format of compacting everything into a single line item. We used to be able to go to the individual agencies and change it on the town meeting floor very simply. Now, because of this format, it makes it more difficult, and I think that's a good point.
Yeah. I almost feel that for something like what you're talking about, Rick, that we should put it out there separately as a match challenge of some sort, and I'm not sure how we'd do that.
Yeah, it would have to be done, planned.
Yeah, and I don't think this year is maybe the year to do that, because we don't have that kind of time. But that's kind of the way I'd go about it, is we could throw our 50 out there, and any other towns could be crickets.
Yep.
So,
So perhaps it'll be better
Yeah.
managed through the League of Towns.
yeah. Right. What do you think, Martha?
I took a shot. It was moved. I didn't hear it seconded, so we can't vote on it yet.
Did you just ask me?
Yes, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think it's a very interesting point, Rick, and I think it's something that we should consider. But I agree that it seems a little hasty to just throw it out there and hope for the best. I think if we really work through the League of Towns, maybe we can get an island-wide effort going.
Well, I apologize for it seeming hasty, but I've been talking about it for a year.
Yeah,
So,
So could we put that on the,
Well,
Well, it's all.
I'll withdraw my motion then.
But the
And
whole
we can go
topic
forward.
of affordable housing is gonna be
Yeah.
a follow-up at the April meeting, so it's a very appropriate time to start talking. Cause we start talking about action plans, developing action plans, and that would seem like an action plan.
Well, can we lead that action plan by throwing that challenge out, yeah, at that meeting? It's like, it's what I, say, well, we're prepared to, move towards contributing $50,000, who's with us, kind of thing, I don't know.
yeah, that was
Yeah,
the whole.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think the point was that a lot of the towns, their budgets are already set. for
I'm
this
not
year.
talking about, yeah, I know.
So you would want to do that is going into your FY 27
Right.
budget, but April would be the time to bring that up.
That's right.
In October, you might be able to finalize it.
Sounds good.
So I guess I would move that for the third-party funding for the 2025 budget, we recommend an amount of $177,248.15.
Second.
everyone in favor?
Oh, sorry.
All, what?
Yeah, let's take the,
26?
Year 26.
Oh, it says 2025, I was reading.
No, that's the 25 request. That's what they requested
Oh.
this year, but for the 26.
Budget, sorry,
Take the-
26.
take the
budget.
15 cents off of it.
Oh,
Yeah,
so I would
They're gonna have to eat that. We don't put decimals into the budget.
recommend $177,248 for the 2026 funding.
Second,
Gee whiz, we've
right.
got two members of the press here, so please don't have as the headline, select board slashes.
15 cents.
15 cents off the budget, slashes the, what was it, the
Down East Community.
Down East community budget, so.
Rounding down like social security.
yeah. All right, all in favor?
Be the Fox News.
Okay. Did you get that?
Chairman,
Yes,
wondering if maybe we could get things a little bit out of order since we have three guests this year on the first agenda item on their new business versus going through all of the warrant articles.
okay, yeah, this is the wrong,
Yes. So let's go to new business and then we'll go back to the warrant article. Okay, let's leave it.
all right, and BES budget review, I'm gonna do that,
Slideshow for you.
yeah.
So it is my pleasure and privilege to present to you the Mount Desert Elementary School 2025-26 budget preview. I prepared an at-a-glance similar to last year, where I laid out our 23-24 enrollment breakdown, and then what we budgeted for this year, and then what we actually have this year, and then what we're anticipating for next year. So I'm gonna zoom in a little bit on what we're actually working with this year. Our enrollment has fluctuated between 158 students and 162 students. 9% of those students are in pre-K, 29% are in our K-2 range, and 62% are in grades 3 through 8. Breaking down our specialized services, these are our special education services, students with IEPs, students with 504s, and our students that are identified as gifted and talented. 17% of our student population are supported with an IEP, an individualized education plan, which includes special education services. 7% of our students have accommodations afforded to them through a 504 plan. And 18% of our students have been identified as gifted and talented. If we move over to that column on the right, we anticipated for next year, you'll notice that last year we budgeted for 146 students and started the year with 158 students, so, all we can do is all we can do as far as estimating who might be joining us next year, but we're anticipating, and this budget has been created for, 157 students. 11% will be in pre-K, 30% in the K2 grade span, 59% in grades 3 through 8, and that is 34% receiving specialized services. I want to just point out under the breakdown with IEP 504 and gifted and talented, the percentage that's in parentheses is the percent of the specialized services population. So for this current year, where it says 17% of our total student population is served through an individualized education plan, that's 42% of the specialized services group of students. Does that make sense? So important to note for later on in my presentation, next year we're anticipating that 20% of our students will be served will be serviced through an individualized education plan. 3% will have accommodations provided through a 504, and 13% will be or are identified as gifted and talented. That doesn't include any eligibility or identification that will take place this spring. That's just working with what we have for students right now. Any questions on those percentages or breakdowns? So looking at the instructional staff that supports these 162 students, all of our students receive or instruction from or work with what I have listed under the universal instruction column. So to support our pre-K students, we have one pre-K teacher and one ed tech. In our K2 primary level department, we have 4 teachers, 2.5 ed techs, 1.5 interventionists, and that's for literacy and math. And I know that the halves may be a little complicated, but that's the amount of time that's committed to those positions. An example is we have 2.5 ed techs in K2. The other half of one ed tech's position is as garden and greenhouse coordinator. So it's a full-time position for one person, but their responsibilities are split across different job descriptions. In our 3rd through 8th grades, we have 7 teachers, and we have a half-time interventionist, or one interventionist spends half of their time working with 3rd through 8th grade students, and we have a 0.2 of an interventionist. That position is shared or combined with a couple of other partial FTE positions. We have a half-time MTSS coordinator. MTSS is our multi-tiered systems of support. Those are the levels of support that students receive prior to being referred to special education. We have one behavior interventionist, one social worker, one behavior, I have behavior specialist and interventionist there twice. That's in this print. And we have our half-time garden greenhouse coordinator. We also have full-time art, music, PE, and Spanish. And then the specialized services are the staff that work with students who fall under the specialized services categories. That would be our IEP students with 504s and gifted and talented. Though I do want to note that gifted and talented technically falls under the regular instruction cost center, but because it's a specialized service, I've put it in this column because only students who are identified with gifted and talented would work with that staff member. So we have 2 special education teachers. We have 1 speech language pathologist, 1 ASL, American Sign Language, 6.5 special ed techs. Our 504 coordinator is 0.3 of a position. And our gifted and talented teaching position right now is 0.2. which equates to 1 day a week or 1 hour and 45 minutes a day. That position is vacant. It has not been filled and we have no applicants. And then we also have services provided through the AOS, our occupational therapist, our school psychologist, and our IT IT coordinator, which technically falls under universal instruction, but it's an AOS special service. And then we contract our physical therapist. Staff that supports our facilities and operations. We have a full-time school nurse. We have 2 office staff. One serves as our office manager, bookkeeper, and special education secretary, and the other is our office assistant and receptionist. We have 1 facilities and maintenance supervisor, 2.25 custodians, which is 3 custodians in the summer. And we have a groundskeeper that is a 0.2 position, just a couple hours, or a couple days a week, especially in the fall and the spring. And we have 3 bus drivers. Our school-wide goals, for which this budget has been created, are for the MDES community to feel safe and focused on learning, and for our curriculum and instruction to provide multiple entry points for students of all abilities, interests, and backgrounds to access and engage in an intellectually challenging work and to develop higher order thinking skills. And the school-wide commitments that we are designing all of our work and driving toward are high-quality academic instruction through the delivery of research-based instruction that's using high-impact teaching strategies, classroom communities in which all learners are seen and heard, valued, and respected, and meaningful and engaging learning opportunities that are accessible to all of our learners. We have a robust offering of opportunities for our students, rich and rigorous learning experiences. We have we design our instruction to be experiential, especially in science and math. Students are learning through observation, data collection, and reflection. Our music ensembles, we have a jazz band that is actually headed to the district competition in a couple weeks, the state competition, March 22nd. And they've been invited to perform at Funtown Splashtown in May. Our band has played at the marina to welcome Santa. You've probably seen them. And they also perform at the community cafe on occasion. And they'll be performing at the Memorial Day ceremony in May. We also have a chorus that performs at Sing Day at the high school. And we have 1 student that's participating in show choir over at Connors Emerson. We don't have enough interest, but we want to make sure that our students that are interested have access. Our athletic department is strong. Our school, our soccer teams and girls and boys basketball teams have all won our district championships. Currently, we are running intramural floor hockey that has some staff participating as well. They play on Tuesdays and Thursdays. We have a student that participated in golf. He joined the golf team over at Connors Emerson. And this spring, our athletes will have the opportunity to play softball or baseball that are island-wide and also participate in spring track. I also want to note we also had, we fielded a cross-country team this fall as well. Our school garden won Maine Garden of the Year this year from the Maine School Garden Network. They'll be featured on the cover of a calendar that's going to be sold as a fundraiser. They were also recognized for Garden of the Month for the month of December as well. Technology, our technology integrator incorporates different STEM options or opportunities that align with learning experiences for students. We have Bbots, Lego robots, students engage in coding. Our middle school students have created podcasts and documentaries. Last spring, they had a listening party over at the library where students created podcasts and invited people to come in and listen and offer feedback. And our eighth graders designed or created documentaries that were screened over at Real Pizza. So that was a really neat experience for them. This year, our fourth and fifth graders spent some time doing beach cleanup down in Bar Harbor and noticed that there was a lot of trash that made its way into the ocean. Bed frames and plasticware and crayons and all kinds of things. So they've been engaging in a solutionary project. They've committed to reducing the use of single-use plastics at our school and have spearheaded the initiative to make sure that we're using reusable plates and plastic or plates and utensils and reducing the use of single-use or single-serve cereals and things like that. They had a fashion unit in art where they were designing clothing and jewelry and things like that, and were inspired by their solutionary project. They created a trashion show. So they made their fashion on the models or whatever. What are those? I don't know what they're called. The mannequins, thank you. That were all made out of things like egg cartons and plastic wrap and all kinds of neat things. And then they're working with a local artist to create an art installation to place temporarily down by the beach to invite and encourage and remind people to be mindful of how they're disposing of their trash. And they're also working with a local percussionist to write music using the single-use plastic items as percussion instruments. Community service is another thing that we value and engage our students in. Our eighth graders have, except for one day that was a snow day, our eighth graders have cleaned up after community cafe. They've stacked all the chairs and pulled up all the tables, mopped the floors, taken out the trash. Our sixth graders also did a food drive for Thanksgiving and donated over 1,000 food items to the Bar Harbor Food Pantry. Environmental stewardship. Through our gardening program, students are learning about pollinators, leaving no trace, composting, and the importance and value of local farming and agriculture. Social emotional learning is another strong component in our school. All of our students in grades pre-K through fifth grade engage in a morning meeting where they're making connections and reinforcing a strong community. We incorporate restorative practices to help students navigate conflict. Our instructional program in pre-K, kindergarten, first and second grade is whole child focused and has social emotional learning intentionally embedded, where students are building cognitive regulation skills, understanding or developing understanding of emotional processes, and strengthening interpersonal skills. Arts Week is coming up the week before April vacation, where students will partner with local artists and be able to explore their interests through various mediums and express their individuality. And responsible citizenship is kind of an overarching theme and goal and value, where we're encouraging students to exercise their and develop their autonomy and also be part of a school community. There's a handful of pictures. So one of the pieces that I wanted to speak to in the budget is that given that 13% of our students meet the criteria for gifted and talented status, I looked a little more deeply into how those students are doing in the absence of a gifted and talented specialist. Last year, 50% of our gifted and talented students showed yearly growth in math. So only half of the students that are identified as gifted and talented showed a year's worth of growth in math, and only 40% showed yearly growth in literacy. I would attribute this to the fact that 55% of our students require intervention or specialized instruction through Tier 3 intervention or special education. So in a regular classroom, the span of instruction is geared more toward the students that might be struggling to reach the standard. And that kind of closes the window on students that would be able to access enrichment or advancement. Our current gifted and talented position is 0.2, which is 1 day a week or an hour and a half a day. And the position, as I said, is vacant with no applications. So I am requesting that we create a new teaching position where we can push the gifted and talented portion to 0.5%, so half time. And then the other half would be interventionists to augment our math interventionist offerings. We have one math interventionist for K through 8th grades. It's a pretty large caseload, and given that there are so many minutes in a day and K-8 is a broad span, I'd like to have that half interventionists focused on math, working with gifted and talented students daily. Also possibly offering an Algebra 1 class for our 8th graders. We have students who are ready for it, and our math teacher is doing his best to incorporate practice opportunities for those skills. But again, the current 8th grade math class is designed for 8th grade math. So being able to offer an Algebra 1 class, and then providing general problem solving, executive function, and higher order thinking instruction in the primary grades, which could potentially strengthen students' skills and abilities to head off some of the potential need for intervention and special education later on. And then they would also deliver intervention to struggling math students. So that was a piece that I wanted to speak to specifically. Now, if you would turn to the fact sheet, I can walk you through that. I'm going to invite Mr. Zboré to speak to that first section.
So, in looking at the fact sheet, as you recall, the fact sheet is there to help board members and they go to meeting upon meeting and view various budgets to each have a centralizing form that helps them sort of keep track. And then this form is then used at town meeting for citizens so they can get a sense of what cost center they're voting on and what sort of made up the cost of that cost center. So it serves multiple purposes. And it starts with the revenue summary, and then Heather will sort of take over and go through the instructional side of it. And so in the revenue summary for the town of Mount Desert, we have carryover that feeds the budget for the next year, our state subsidy, and then the lion's share comes from town appropriation. This year, we are proposing almost 270,000 in carryover towards the budget. We are going to save out 100,000 for next year's budget as a way of having a starting place. Again, the idea is to ensure that we're putting less towards the appropriation of taxpayers, and by having that little bit of carryover into next year will help. In state subsidy, you will see this year we're proposing 320,000. It's more than last year, and that those funds come from the state 279s, and those are based on a year ago's special education numbers, and so we don't see the benefit of those until a couple years down the road. So actually, our subsidy was about 338,000. Considering the dynamics of the state legislature, we'd rather not max out our state subsidy and hold on to a little bit just in case things change in Augusta. So we set that number at 320, and then the town appropriation going into next year would be the 5,253,399 at a 4.25%. And on the backside of this summary, you'll see how that relates to budget, and then what that looks like for 100,000.
We'll jump into the first article or cost center, the regular instruction. The proposed budget has a difference or an increase of 9.33%. That is to account for teacher salaries and benefit increases. Also, we have several teachers that are required to take graduate courses to fulfill their professional development and certification requirements. Arts Week in the past has been funded through a REAP grant, and I'd like to incorporate that into our regular budget. And then this is also where the gifted and talented, halftime gifted and talented, halftime interventionist position that position would fall into this cost center. So that is looking at a 9.33% increase. Special education, the proposed budget shows an increase of 24.7%. This is accounting for teacher salary and benefit adjustments. Because of the increased number of special education students, we would need to add a special education ed tech to our roster. That's to ensure that we're able to deliver services or accommodations like specialized direct instruction and in-class support. So because of the increased caseload, I'm requesting the added ed tech position. Also, the increase accounts for conferences and training fees and the AOS special education assessment. Under other instruction co-curricular, we're looking at an increase of 14.43%. This is so that we can increase our homework club offerings. This year, we were able to offer students across all grade spans an opportunity to dance. And we also had an actor or a theater opportunity after school. And we have an ed tech that's also offering cooking club. And then we also have 4 days a week academic support through the homework club. So we're hoping to provide more robust after school offerings for students, especially students who are not participating in athletics. It gives them something to do after school as well. This also accounts for co-curricular stipends and summer school. Under student and staff support, we're looking at an increase of 5.39%. Again, salaries and benefits, the AOS assessment for curriculum and technology. And we also have a memorandum of understanding with the library. They provide all of our library services and our students have access to their collection. So the increase there is to account for the cost of living. And then, Mike, did you want to speak to the system administration piece?
And then the system administration, that 18% increase, that is coming from the addition of a HR personnel for the AOS office. And I could jump in for the special education increase coming from the AOS office as the addition of a special ed administrator to help us manage the startup of schools being responsible for 3 and 4 year olds, as that's coming off of the state's responsibility and moving to schools to identify and provide services for those students within the community. The addition of an OT, the 2 OTs that work in the district right now, their caseloads are maxed out, so they can't add any more services. So there's an occupational therapist, and then halftime, there's already a halftime admin assistant in the special ed office to support all the data work that they do. And with the increase of the CDS, it will be important to have that office personnel to support all the changes in managing those 3 and 4 year olds, within each of the communities.
Under school administration, The proposed budget increases by 9.65% to cover health insurance and plan changes. And also to provide cell phone plans or cell phones for the office staff. They are using their personal phones currently to contact substitutes, receive calls from bus drivers and teachers, and do all of the things that they do to navigate the day-to-day. And I would prefer that they use school devices for that. Transportation and buses, 1.04% increase to account for salary and benefit adjustments. And
Decrease.
sorry, decrease, sorry.
Highlight.
Yep, minus.
Yeah.
Thank you for catching that. And then facilities and maintenance is also decreased. Mostly this is because we are not putting money into a capital outlay. So we are looking at, we have our HVAC monitoring system payments. We need to update our playground wood chips. We would like to put a salt sand spreader on the plow truck that we have for the school. We have ongoing lawn and field irrigation maintenance, and our last year's 3rd grade, this year's 4th grade, through a writing unit they did on letter writing. They wrote me a letter after our budget had been finalized, asking for some new playground features. So I incorporated that into this budget, and hope to be able to invite them to do some research on what kind of playground equipment they would like, and we can make that happen for them. And then finally, other expenditures under food service. We're looking at an increase of 2.5% to cover food service staff wages. So overall, we're looking at a budget to budget increase of 8.18%, and the town appropriation increase of 4.25%, which would be an increase of $8.58 per $100,000 valuation. Underneath that, you'll see our reserves. Our maintenance reserve balance is $154,587. Our bus reserve is $45,706. And our special education reserve is $143,433. And the budget that we've designed does put money into those reserves. But there it is. So, does anyone have questions?
Yeah, I just had a quick, I'm trying to, the special ed section that has, I know it says 7 ed techs. You said you added 1 more, but it has a proposed budget that increases by 40% from almost from 141,000 something to 208, and then also the ed tech benefits going up nearly doubling to 131,000. I totally understand the argument for trying, I mean, part of the argument, at least what I'm reading, is that creating a full-time position from a couple of niche needs is much more likely to attract applicants, which is of course what we need first before we can find good people.
Yeah.
But that was that, the additional, you said 1 more ed tech, but I know the total of 7, I don't know how many there were, and
For
then,
special ed, it was 6.
so that, so an ed tech. So the increases in the 6 raises and then 1 more, it makes it another $67,000. I don't,
So depends on some of it is like health benefits.
Well, that
If
was
there are
listed.
Changes in health benefits that we anticipate.
Well, there's
that would
2.
be One, that would be even current staff for next year, maybe some
Okay,
changes. And also some of the grants, we were kind of weaning off from a little bit because we weren't sure exactly how that's gonna bear out for next year.
okay. I'm just trying to, because it was, I mean, it was between Blue Cross Blue Shield and salary. It was $321, $321,000 last year, and it's gonna be 200, I'm sorry. 200. Can't add to that. And then it goes up $140,000 for one more I don't know, just seemed, I just didn't understand that, sorry.
So, Nancy, please correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think that that difference is because of the one ed tech that's been added.
Right,
The support staff has also negotiated a new contract. So there's an increase there.
okay,
Hmm.
okay,
The AOS costs are in the special education, the total special education is there's added AOS. Also 33,000 of that, of the increase is from the addition of the special ed,
all right,
the AOS office.
just, it just
Yeah,
didn't
thank
match
you
up
for-
with my
no, I
vision,
appreciate
sure,
that
no
you're-
problem.
Thank you for your time.
Thanks.
You. Thank you very much.
Since Adam is here, do you want to do that?
Yeah, why don't we get that out of the way? We'll take item B next, consider approval of a late mobile vendor license application for the Nor'easter Common Market.
Based on the documentation that was provided to us by the code enforcement officer and what the current regulations are, and the letter provided by Mr. Fraley, I would move approval of the request of the mobile vendor license.
I would second that.
The only discount, take, get rid of that cesspool company on the
Yeah,
front,
it's not-
right away.
I'm here to answer any questions that the board has.
Yeah,
Just concerns, not questions.
no, that's all.
Okay, anybody have any comments beyond the cesspool? All in favor? All set, thank you.
I didn't even see that.
Okay.
Up on weird little things sometimes. Okay.
Okay, all right, let's get back to item B under unfinished business.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, I'm assuming the arrows, Claire?
I was trying to make it very clear which ones you were voting.
Okay. Article 5. Shall an ordinance dated May 6, 2025, entitled Amendments to the Town of Mount Desert Harbor Ordinance be enacted?
Select board recommends passage and I so move.
Second,
All in favor? Article 17, to see if the inhabitants of the town of Mount Desert will vote to grant an easement to Versant Power for the installation of a push brace.
Select board recommends passage and I so move.
second,
All in favor? Article 19, to see if the inhabitants of the town of Mount Desert will vote to grant an extension to April 30, 2026 of the deadline, April 30, 2025, which was imposed in warrant article 28 and adopted at the May 7, 2024 annual town meeting, requiring Denningbrook Estates Homeowners Association on or before said deadline to deliver their deed to the town.
Select board recommends passage and I so move.
Second,
Brian, do you have any?
Well, I'm happy to answer any questions. It's just a matter of getting
It's just a dotting the i's and crossing the t's. Right? Yeah. Okay, all in favor? Article 38, to see if the inhabitants of the town will vote to ratify the overdraft that occurred in public safety, fire department, hydrants, and emergency management. In the amount of $115,256.57. The overdraft was charged to the undesignated fund balance. Said departmental overage is primarily attributable to firefighter overtime expenses. Right, take a motion.
Select board recommends passage and I so move.
Second,
Questions, discussion, all in favor? Article 39, to see if the inhabitants of the town of Mount Desert will vote to ratify the overdraft that occurred in general government in the amount of $11,618.11.
Select board recommends passage and I so move.
Second.
All in favor? Article 40, to see if the inhabitants of the town will vote to ratify the overdraft that occurred in debt service for the year June 30, 2024, in the amount of $883.84.
Select board recommends passage and I so move.
Second.
All in favor? Article 41, to see if the inhabitants of the town will vote to ratify the overdraft that occurred in recreation in the amount of $1,567.87.
select board recommends passage and I so move.
Second.
All in favor? Article 42, to see what some of the inhabitants of the town will vote to raise and appropriate for the Department 200 through 211. General government, governing body, municipal government, town clerk, registrar, elections, planning board, finance, treasurer, tax collector, assessment, code enforcement, unallocated funds, human resources, technology, and contracted municipal and community-oriented services for the 25-26 town budget.
Select board recommends $2,250,225 and I so move.
Second.
Any discussion?
I'm just very confused. We've had conversations. Can you please explain, like, these figures? And I mean, we've talked about this, and I just would,
You got what the original was.
Is-
Till,
is this the updated
this
figures?
is the update.
Recommended.
With the recommended cuts that you wanted me to.
Okay, can I read something before we vote on this?
It's not up to me.
Yeah, go ahead.
And Heidi, I'll give you a copy of this. The Town of Mount Desert Select Board has thoroughly reviewed and discussed the proposed budgets presented by Town Manager Lund. These budgets include salary increases for most department heads and other essential non-union employees within the Town of Mount Desert. Many discussions surrounding these salary adjustments have taken place both formally and informally in various settings around the town. This is my opinion. So this has not been an easy discussion for anyone involved. Some may not fully understand the scope of the work being done or how current compensation compares to similar positions in communities across the state. We have a mix of long-serving, highly qualified employees and newer hires who bring valuable skills to our town. This decision was made with careful consideration of multiple factors, including taxpayer impact, current union wages, essential department leadership, and our responsibility to maintain fiscal sustainability while ensuring the town can effectively manage its budgets in the years ahead without placing an undue burden on taxpayers. Speaking personally, this process has been particularly challenging. When the Board of Selectmen met in executive session early on, I initially believed that the salary figures that we were discussing were still just in a discussion phase. However, I later learned that these figures had already circulated among town employees, which made it much harder to challenge or adjust them once they were publicly known. Additionally, the proposed salary adjustments include longevity increases for certain employees, and these adjustments range from an annual increase of like over $35,000 to only $1,400. The Board of Selectmen is recommending a phased-in approach to salary adjustments, approving a 50% of the proposed increases this year, with the remaining 50% distributed over the following 2 years. This approach aims to fairly compensate our employees with providing them with the clarity on future raises. At the same time, I believe it ensures fiscal responsibility by minimizing the immediate impact on taxpayers and maintaining equitable support for union employees. And I, for one, would just like to thank the town employees for understanding on my behalf. And now I will. Did we second it?
Wendy, I want to say something. That was excellent. I couldn't have said it better. You got it in a nutshell. We really struggled with this. And I hope that everyone concerned with these decisions understands our position. Thank you, Wendy.
I would follow with exactly the same thing. It was very difficult, having not been aware of how this was out there and put us in a very awkward position for people that we have to work with closely and we respect and we need. So this is, I mean, we learned about where we were in relation to many other municipalities in the state. And we agree that we need to be competitive in order to attract and retain quality people. But we were also very concerned about the optics of a 30% raise for the senior personnel in all the departments, not all of them. Some of them were a lot, and it was very difficult. So that I agree. I appreciate you having written that out.
And I think also respecting the other non-union, the other union employees and their dedication to the town as well. So thank you for that opportunity.
Thank you.
Yeah, I guess vote. We haven't voted
You
yet.
have a motion and second.
The motion second, all in favor?
Thank you for that clarification.
Okay, Article 46, to see what some of the inhabitants of the town will raise and appropriate for the department 401, 405, 407, and 408, public safety, police and communications for the 25-26 town budget.
Select board recommends $1,630,935. I so move.
Second.
All in favor? Article 47, to see what some of the inhabitants of the town will vote to raise and appropriate for Department 403, 404, 409, public safety, fire department, hydrants and emergency management for the 25-26 town budget.
Select board recommends $2,981,439, and I so move.
Second.
Oh, yes, all in favor? See what some of the inhabitants, Article 48, to see what some of the inhabitants of the town of Mount Desert will vote to raise and appropriate for Department 501, 515, 520, and 525, Public Works, Roads, Waste Management, Buildings and Grounds, Parks and Cemeteries, and 530, Environmental Sustainability for the 25-26 town budget.
Select board recommends $3,378,881, and I so move.
Second.
All in favor? Article 49, to see what some of the inhabitants of the town will vote to raise and appropriate for Department 505 and 506, Sewers, Wastewater Treatment for the 25-26 town budget.
Select board recommends $1,311,814, and I so move.
Second.
Does that include the new truck? Blue truck, anyway.
That has been.
All in favor? Okay. We're up to, let's see,
50.
Article 50. See what some of the inhabitants of the town of Mount Desert will vote to raise and appropriate for Department 605, Recreation, Public Pool, Utilities and Maintenance for the 25-26 town budget.
Select board recommends $10,000, and I so move.
Second.
All in favor? Article 55. To see if the inhabitants of the town will vote to ratify the select board's approval of the Marina Proprietary Fund budget.
Select board recommends ratification of the presented budget.
Second,
All in favor?
Jeff,
I was waiting for a number, I wasn't paying attention.
All right, that's it. Get them all clear?
Get new budget paperwork. So that we'll be able to understand how these numbers work.
I believe we're gonna get that for the following meeting on the night of the 18th. We could be quite a few more warrant articles that are gonna come up, including the school warrant articles, so we'll have one package. So what I propose we do as the one, I have 3 members of the warrant committee. I propose we do the boilerplate stuff that they did last week. Tomorrow night, and then it'll give us some chance to process everything, and we can start a little bit on the night of the 11th, when Heather Dorr, Mike Zabori, and Brian Hank will all come back. Forget her. I'll come back, and then our final night will be the 18th.
But will we get new, I mean, we need to see new budgets from each department as to where these numbers are. Because the numbers that we all have received.
I believe it's.
On the 18th, you'll get a whole new sheet from the
That's
whole
what-
town. Working on that now.
I think it was 2 months to get her involved.
Yes.
To have it correct.
Okay, let's move back down to new business, item C. Consider authorizing the Mount Desert Regional High School to grant scholarships of $375 from the Reynolds Trust Fund and $100 from the Stanley Trust Fund as described in memo from Finance Director May Wyatt.
move authorization.
Second.
All in favor? Item D, review and approve the purchase of 2 ADA compliant portable toilets to replace the Seal Harbor Comfort Station.
Move approval.
Second.
Thank you for doing your, as always, thorough investigation.
All in favor? Review and approve update to section 7.7.12 of the Personnel Policy Manual to establish a compensable cash out eligible policy.
Move approval of the update.
second,
All in favor? Public comments. Anybody have a public comment? Bill?
I do have a public comment. You know, I listened to everything tonight about the salaries and the budgets and all that. We do live in a small town. I just listened to the education component for the high school. I understand your opinions, everything. Are we really talking as little as like $125,000 difference this year versus next year? What we took out?
Okay,
$108,410.
Thank you. That was the number. Can you say it one more time, Dave, so I can write it down?
$108,410. That is the difference between the original budget for the department requests and the board selected.
So this is over $108,000. We got some really good people in the room and, you know, how many millions are total budget?
so Phil, I understand that, but I think a lot of it was also about all of the other employees for the town that are union, that got minuscule raises, and we were trying to make everybody happy. I mean, apples to apples, donuts to donuts, $108,000 is $108,000. But I understand, you have a good point when you're talking like that, but when you look at those figures that we saw, and some people were, getting a $35 theoretically. I mean, I figured it based on 40 hours a week, and I know many of you guys work a lot more than 40 hours a week, but some of those were $35 an hour raises compared to a $3 an hour raise that some of the other people are getting.
Anyhow, I find it all.
You're all shaking your heads. Did you not see the figures that we saw?
$35 or something. Now,
Well, I figured them based on hours, because I'm an hours person. I didn't bring my spreadsheet, but I'll rescind that if everybody's shaking their head, but
$35.
Periodic increases in their agreed contracts. Every 3 years they get agreed upon increase based on the market. So they have that factor that the salary people who are not had incentive.
It'll be 8 years by the time this rolls around. So, you know, not having an adjustment to your base rate for 8 years. And given all the changes that have occurred within the economic system, we've had capped COLA increases that trailed what, Darrell, about 18 months behind the actual
Yeah,
cost of living and inflation of over 8%. And our salaries have not even come close to keeping up with those cost changes. And we're talking about $108,000. Do you know what that would be across the board for taxpayers? We're talking pennies. And it shows me how much you really appreciate the work that your department heads and your people do for you. Maybe we need to close the office on Fridays so that we can get our work done and not have to do all the overtime.
all right,
And I want to say one more thing, if I may. It
yes,
has nothing to do with this, but in the school budget and for the AOS, they are hiring an HR person, which is really, that makes all the responsibility on their end, if I'm not mistaken, as far as knowing that the surveys, the salary surveys are done properly, on time, when they should be done, keeping track of market trends, making sure your union employees and your union contracts are kept up to date. It's very complicated, and I understand that as both someone that works, you know, on a fixed rate myself, you know, I no one keeps track of my hours. I do work as a contractor, and when I work as a contractor versus when I work by an hour, I understand, you know, when we come up with numbers like what you're describing, but I think it's really important that we have a true HR person sometime in the future. If we're gonna budget for things like that.
Yeah.
It might be.
I could maybe just clarify a little bit about what you're actually talking about as far as percentages go. So the percent increases excluding Derwin's are an average of about 18% increase. The most recent union contract was a 10% increase pretty much across the board for everyone, without including the longevity, which is up to 15% more. And so when you're talking about percentage increases, the average percent increase for what's being proposed by the salary study is not that far out of line with what was done in the current union contract. Because it was a $3 an hour across the board, and most make somewhere in the high 20s to low 30s dollars per hour. So it's not that far out of line. And I think the main thing about this is that the salary study made clear that we have fallen behind. The cap on the cost of living adjustment has made it such that this town has been falling behind. This, I believe, is just going to keep us behind and not get us to where we need to be. And what I think we need is to be able to hire people. So, you know, with this, I have the potential of looking for a superintendent at some point in the near future. And if I can't put salaries out there that are going to attract and retain people, that's going to be problematic for me. The two that I have now have very high longevity numbers, and they are benefiting from that. That's keeping them in that job. This is going to be hard to do. You're going to be looking for a manager.
Right.
You are looking for a manager now. If this is where you're at, you're making the job much more difficult to try and get that manager hired. This is fallen behind for multiple reasons. And this should, I think, be the wake up that says, look, we have not kept up.
And it was a wake up, and the fact that, as Claire said, things hadn't been addressed in many years is certainly problematic. But when it comes across and we're looking at the senior people in a department getting a 30% raise, and that happened on more than 2-3 occasions, that we understand, we were not aware of how far behind we were. We found out, and it was a shocker. We needed to find a way to make that change, and it's not going to fall further behind if we catch up in 3 years, to make that change palatable to the people who pay the taxes optically, maybe not in, small, in a few dollars per household. That's possible. But when you're talking about, on paper, I had phone calls from people that said, what is going on? Why is so-and-so getting a $30,000 raise? Does anybody in the private sector get a 30% raise? Very rarely, unless you're selling something and probably doing it. So it was an optics thing. It wasn't about the totals. We looked at all the budget totals for each department. They weren't up significantly enough but that line item and we didn't do this. We saw those numbers. We asked, what in the world's going on? Are we that far behind? Answer is apparently so. We can't do this in 1 year, but we can do this. And that's what the decision was. And it's not on us, and it's unfair, some of the things that are being said. We're trying to do the best we can.
Keep in mind, you can't compel a future board to do anything.
True. Okay.
So you're doing one thing. You're not doing.
Well, actually, yeah, at this point, I guess we've done one thing. Yeah.
Mr. Chair, can I make a comment?
Yes, go
Mr.
ahead.
Chapin. I just wanted to speak on the union to non-union comparison. Because it's just one of the things that happens with your union is you set your contract for the 3 years, and then something major could change and you're stuck in that contract for 3 years, but the non-union employee shouldn't be punished for the contract that the union employee signed.
That's correct. Yeah, I think we've tried to adhere to that maximum for every union cycle, every contract cycle, trying to make everything a parity.
Well, we did a salary study that is
Somebody did a salary study that, whatever.
for the union contract, which is what
That's right.
it's the same methodology.
So, yeah, so did they aim at the 95th percentile? Same methodology. Okay.
Not the first time the town meeting, prior to town meeting, we've been in the same place about salaries in this town. This is not the first time this has happened. And I feel bad, I'm like compassion to all of you, how the optics might look. But you gotta hire a new town manager, and you wanna keep the people you have, you might want to think about all those things. And
Implying that we're not.
sorry.
Implying that we're not.
I am trying to be sympathetic to how difficult it might be where the 4 and 1 person on Zoom is sitting to make these kind of decisions and feel like there's a concern that the optics look bad. And now we're talking about $108,000 over optics. It's difficult. I just really, I want you to know that I have no. I just find it really hard just to, again, argue about, we could spend $6 million to fix the public safety building, but now we're talking about $108,000 on your employees. So I don't know, I find it difficult. And
This whole process has been really difficult, Phil.
I
And that was my statement, like, I didn't want this to get into like, I know people are angry at us right now. And I've had more conversations with community members that saw those figures. I feel like as a warrant committee member, if you would like the warrant committee to recommend those original budgets, people could bring that to town meeting and let the town decide if people feel strongly about that. Just because we recommend that amount doesn't mean that,
When you're well aware of the world, you know.
I mean, I
there's a lot of
just-
ways to do this, you know, we can do it as a warrant committee, we can do it on the town meeting floor. It's just numbers, we can't change the words to article, but we can certainly change numbers. And again, I have, you all have my compassion, how difficult it is, but
it doesn't
that's
sound
the
like.
part I'm trying to say. That it's something that we, you know, I'm not a board member, I know how difficult it must be. You hear all that. I'm gonna stop talking.
Well, you know, I keep in mind that even with the plan to go 50, 25, 25, and eventually be at the recommended level of, I guess, 95th percentile or something. Some a little less,
This year of 2025. You're talking about putting us at 95% in 3 years.
that's correct.
With this.
Yes, we all got that. Yeah. Okay.
Just
All right. So a lot of those are pretty robust increases. And as you point out, yes, we've even had meetings. Okay, to try and talk this through. But we're not allowed to have those meetings. Okay. Which are so critical to our doing our job. So we get blindsided by this stuff. And granted, we knew about it at the end of November. That's when we first got the salary survey from Durland. Okay, end of November going into
I was here with
this,
exactly.
that's right, okay. So Zach made his presentation. I'm not sure I was crazy about his methodology, but
I'm not either.
okay, but that's what we got. Okay, and then we had a bunch of things to balance. We've got 2,000 residents that are, well, not all 2,000 of them are banging at the door, but clearly some people were pretty upset at some of those numbers. Okay. It was a surprise to us that those numbers were as far off as they were. That's not what we do. We don't run the town. Okay, we're not an operation of organism, okay?
No, I understand the town meeting.
So, the town meeting does not run the town. The town meeting is the legislative organ of the town, okay? Durland and the office staff run the town. That's the operation. And that's something we're not supposed to touch. Okay, because when we do, we get our hands slapped. And when we don't, sometimes we get asked for our opinion, and then we give our opinion and we get our hands slapped. Okay.
The catch-all, that's what it is.
So, you know, here we are trying to juggle this stuff. I know folks that work for this town that haven't seen a raise even close to any of these numbers since the beginning of time. Okay. So here we are, we're trying to balance our citizenry, our voters, with approximately about half our workforce. With the concerns of a union contingent that they have, you know, they're justified in scratching their heads. And we're looking down the road at a new union contract or having to go into negotiations that might look vastly different because of the way we handle this. Okay, now I understand that we can't encumber another 50% of the budget going forward. After this, I would hope that the board would continue to act in good faith. I can't promise that, I don't know. But I can tell you that the full amounts, the full adjustments that you put into your original numbers, that's not flying with a lot of other people. And we have to balance this. Okay, and we're trying to do this as equitably and as fast as we can. And this is the way we're going to do it. Maybe it'll get changed at town meeting, I don't know. Listen, if you can talk a room full of people into anything, that would be something to see, but. Okay. I'm sorry if people are offended, you know, but these were some pretty decent numbers I'm looking at here. And I'm not gonna share my thoughts on the methodology that was used. But anyway. Anybody else? Right, I guess that was our public comment period. Any other business? No. Such other businesses may be legally conducted. Treasurer's warrants. Approval and signature town invoice AP 2556 in the amount of $361,161.40.
Move approval and signature.
Second,
All in favor? Approval and signature state fees and payroll benefits AP 2555, PR 2520 in the amount of $308,849.39.
Move approval. Second.
All in favor?
One abstention.
Acknowledgements, school invoices, school payroll, PR 18 in the amount of $196,764.33.
Full acknowledgement.
Second.
All in favor? Thank you. Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?